Do it.
No one wants to be the richest bitch in the graveyard. Sorry for the profanity, but like that's the one thing I was like, no, like what are you gonna do with all that money? Okay, give it to like your kids or something, but like spend the money on like following your passions and like doing something you love, because that you're so much better off to the world if you're doing something you're passionate
100%. This episode is brought to you by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, Chief Donut Officer at Chin Up Donuts, Alex McEntire. Alex, are you feeling unstoppable today?
Oh yeah, always.
Oh man, psyched to have you here, and I want to give a special shout out to Rory Bulkin out in Dallas, Texas, who called you out. She's with Donut Digest, I believe is the name of her. Yeah. She's awesome, and she's never pointed me in the wrong direction. So she called you out. I said, if you think I need to be here, Rory, I'm absolutely going to show up. And I cannot wait to dive in, because you have a really interesting backstory, like a very unique backstory.
Yeah, non-traditional. For
sure. A little teaser. You spent some time with Amazon for like 6 years. Yeah. And I love people that have unique, diverse backgrounds who get into the industry, because it shows that no matter what your background is, you know, you there's an opportunity to get into this industry.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into that. But before we find out who you are and how you got to where you are today, let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
Yeah. My go-to is every day above ground is a good day.
Every day above ground is a good day. Pretty straightforward, but really dive into that.
Yeah. And not like industry related necessarily, but I'm a very optimistic person. That's like what drives the name and positivity and all of that stuff. But I think if you can look at it that way, no matter the crap that's going on, just think like, man, the sun came up today and I got to open my eyes. Like, it's going to be a good day. I can make it work, whatever challenges I face. So that's kind of how I live my life.
I love that. And you know, the mission statement is to change the world by inspiring, empowering, and transforming the industry. And I think that the restaurant industry, to be successful in this industry, it takes a special kind of person. I think this industry really does like influence society in ways that we've just begun to like really understand. I think it's part of it is just that positivity that we bring constantly.
Yeah.
Awesome way to get this thing started. So where does it make sense to start sharing your story? I did a little bit of research. You have a fantastic LinkedIn profile, by the way.
Cool.
Tons of detail. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, back from college days and then coming out of college, I guess. I don't have a ton of even like restaurant. I mean, I worked at It's a Grind. I was a barista in high school and then did some like hostess jobs. But yeah, after college, I got a job with Amazon. That's kind of where it all kind of started from there.
Yeah, I saw you had some catering experience.
Yeah,
too,
so in college
it
was a wedding venue here in the Valley, and so I thought I was going to be a wedding planner, like an event planner was my original. My degree is in design management, which is very vague. It's kind of an interdisciplinary major, so like business, design, communications, which I like because you can kind of do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, dive more into that. I saw that title, design management is what it was called.
Yeah, so I took a bunch of business classes, so management, finance, and stuff like that. Took a lot of design stuff, so I took everything from architecture to graphic design to a lot of arts classes, and then communication, which is kind of very vague, but did some like communication courses in there. So I really liked, just because I wasn't sure what I wanted to go out to do, and that kind of incorporated a lot of things that I liked, business and design mainly. So it was cool.
So you started your undergrad was with design, communications, everything you just mentioned. 2013 from Arizona State, and then in 2000, just before that, were you at Penn State?
Yeah, so I went. Because I'm born and raised here in the Valley.
Got it.
I was like, I'm going to get out of Arizona. I've lived here. I want to try something different. So I went to Penn State for my freshman year of school because I'm like, let's get out, try the East Coast kind of thing.
East Coast disappointed you, huh?
It was just too cold. I'm not cut out for the snow. I realized pretty quickly. Penn State was such a fun college and a very much like college town, which is very different than ASU. So it was cool to experience living in the dorm and like just walking everywhere and like you're literally on campus. Also felt a little confined for me. ASU is very much part of the city, so it's like being from here, they're just like, you can go to downtown, you can be in Tempe. So yeah, after my year, I was like, okay, I'm
got it. I was curious about that. So you find yourself back in Arizona. You graduate from Arizona State University, design, management, and communications. What else did you say? You said something else too.
It was communication, business, and design, but the degree was design management.
Did you have a vision for yourself when you were a young woman? Like, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do?
Never own my own business.
Right.
The corporate life was like what I was after, like climbing the corporate ladder. I was for sure like, I want something stable and like secure. My parents owned their own business growing up.
What business was it?
They owned an art and framing gallery.
Okay.
So it was cool because I saw the flexibility that they had to like my dad volunteering at the school and my mom picking us up every day. Like, but then I saw like just how stressful and hard it can be to own your own business and how like the demise of a business can like affect a family.
Right.
So I think that was hard. I was like, I'm after stability, financial security, all of that. So
got it. And you ended up graduating with 3.98 GPA,
yes.
summa cum laude. I think
the 1B will haunt me forever. No. Yeah. So.
What was the B in? I'm curious.
Oh gosh, I think it was. It wasn't Spanish. That was high school. My 1B was in Spanish.
Yeah, I dropped.
It was, I think, architecture,
okay.
which was oddly
That's
very hard.
Yeah,
there were so many detailed things.
Well, hey, I won't hold it against you. So, typically at this point of the conversations, we're talking about the come up. Like usually people in the industry go work for others and they transform as a restaurant professional, and they learn all these like little things along the way from key mentors. You don't have a lot of restaurant experience leading into your concept, but did you have key mentors and like transformative points along your journey as a young adult that are worth bringing to the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, it starts when I was young and just seeing the power of food and like always being around food. And from a fairly big family, there were 6 of us. So it's like everything happened around the dinner table. And so that just like sense of community. And then being part of the Phoenix area for so long and just seeing like it's such a huge city, but it's not like a food city, or wasn't when I was growing up 20 years ago.
It really is a huge city.
Yeah.
And not like when you think of like New York City, you think like huge buildings.
Yeah.
But it takes an hour to drive across the city.
Yeah.
From like east to west. It's a big footprint.
Urban sprawl is real.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like that early on, like that food culture that I was I mean, Chili's was like the peak of going out to eat. Was like, yes, we're going to Chili's. Which, no shade on Chili's, it's great. I love me some chips and salsa from Chili's. But that was like when I had moved to a different city, moving to Seattle, especially with like seeing the food culture there, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And like really is like the heart of the city. And I saw that potential in Phoenix. So that's kind of my wheels were turning. And that's like starts from when I was young with family and eating and cooking with my grandma and things like that. And then working a little bit in the hospitality industry. I mean, a couple years at a pizza shop and stuff, but not really, like you said, not really working my way up in that industry. I was very set on the corporate life, but then being opened, like my eyes open to what the food culture and food scene can be and how creative places can get in Seattle, because that's such a cool foodie town.
For sure. Especially the time that you were there. I feel like it was kind of ahead of the curve in terms of like food innovation. You know, I feel like a lot of the country is caught up to like the Washingtons of the world. I think Bend, Oregon was probably not Bend. Portland, Oregon was another one. Yeah. Los Angeles, like the whole West Coast was doing crazy stuff. So one thing I think was really interesting about your story, in just doing the little bit of research I was able to do this morning, you got to focus 6 years of your career becoming a specialist at one of the most difficult things that the restaurant industry has to deal with. Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So finish my thought.
And marketing and branding.
Marketing and branding. You were recruiting people too, weren't you?
Yeah.
But you were marketing and branding to employees.
To hire people, yeah.
Yes. So like, I mean, get into that evolution and how you learned, that.
Yeah. And I was it was really cool. I mean, Amazon was like the gold star of employers and being recruited to work for them, because I worked at a magazine. I was an intern at a magazine too. So that was kind of what got my foot in the door. They saw that, and this new team at Amazon was like a startup team within Amazon, the high volume hiring team. So it was there to pretty much create ads and market the jobs, that way the warehouse jobs in particular at Amazon. So I had some of that experience. So I was mostly on the creative side of things, but like what do you
mean by creative? Like design,
copywriting.
Hey, that degree actually plays.
Yeah.
Works, right?
I was very underqualified for what they let me do, but it was really cool. I was like literally designing billboards. I
mean, you do have a great eye for design, for the record. Even just looking at your website, being in here, like there's a talent there.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
But definitely not like I took some design classes, but not like super qualified design, but they let me do it. And I'm like, hey, okay. So I was designing stuff, a lot of copywriting. And so that more creative aspect of what wording do we use to try and draw people in to apply at the warehouse job isn't often the most sought after kind of job. So
neither is the restaurant industry.
True. Yeah. You're making connections I haven't made before, which is really,
yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what I do though, is make the connections. So, I mean, what was it like working for Amazon? Cause I feel like this is such an phenomenal. I mean, it's a juggernaut of a corporation.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think when we spend time to go work for these organizations, it forces us to see things through a different lens, through a different perspective of order and process. And who does efficiency better than Amazon?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was that influence? How did they imprint on you during this time?
Yeah, for sure. I loved Amazon in my time there. I got recruited, like I said, it was a very small team. It was more of a startup team within Amazon. There was 12 people when I started, and we were just kind of figuring things out as I go. So it was very kind of non-traditional in terms of Amazon, where you're joining a team that's 200 people and they've got the SOPs and the processes documented. We're I think we're going to try this now, which is a lot of trial and error stuff, which was really cool to be able to do that and have a huge budget to do that when you're working with Amazon. So I started, there was a team of 12. I had the best manager, met some of my best friends working side by side with them every day. It was a lot of work. It was very long hours, as traditional for Amazon, but I was young, just out of college. I'm I don't have anything better to do than to grind it out, and really enjoying the people that I was working alongside and working with helped. But within my 6 years, I stayed on one team, which is very rare in Amazon. Usually you're bouncing from different teams, but there was 12 people when I started, and there was over 500 or 600 when I left. So really saw this expansion of this startup team within Amazon, which was really cool to see how you can go from such a small thing to really rocket ship growth.
Because during that time, 2013 to 2017, right? Or 19?
19, yeah.
Yeah. 13 to 19. That's they didn't have their warehouse network like they do today.
Yeah. So it was,
they were really building that out.
Mm-hmm,
so
and that was part of that, hundreds of thousands of people you had to hire, which is just such a crazy number when you think about it.
What was the strategy for how you were trying to find people?
Yeah, and so many of it is these small towns just outside of larger cities, so you can't do the traditional media of what you would do in a city. So a lot of billboards, we did a lot of hiring events. So I was traveling to all these smaller towns throughout the country and just doing hiring events where you're handing out flyers and literally pull tabs on a poster board in the community room. So as long as we eventually got to the point where we're doing media buys and stuff, so we're more traditional media, but a lot of it was boots on the ground. Let's go to college campuses, let's go to these coffee shops and put up flyers. So for being such a huge company, it was kind of just figuring it out as we go, and smaller scale stuff to get to the larger scale.
But I think that mindset of just figuring it out as you go, coming from a company like Amazon, is just there's lessons there. Just try stuff.
Yeah.
You don't need to have the most experienced person doing it either. You were straight out of college. A lot of the people were young, and they're you said, you were underqualified.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. I think that in the restaurant industry, we're guilty of not letting people try things.
Yeah.
We hired you to flip the burger, right?
Yeah.
What else is that person bringing to the table that you're not tapping into?
Yeah.
In terms of is there a better way to flip the burger?
Yeah.
If you can tell us a better way to flip the burger, then we will entertain that.
Yeah.
You know?
And that was a big part of it, was highlighting we always talked about the value proposition. What is the value proposition that Amazon offers? Benefits day one, that was always our number one. You get health benefits on your first day, which was unheard of, especially in that industry. But then the growth path that Amazon offers, if you're willing to work hard, was really inspiring to me. Obviously I did get a degree and I went straight to the headquarters, but I knew there was a growth path. Even if you had to start in the warehouse position, you can work your way up from, without a college degree, put your time in as a warehouse associate and then move up to an area manager. Then to there is a trajectory there, which was really cool.
Was this trajectory obvious when you joined?
I mean, not to me, no. It was just as I was having to market these jobs, I feel then you saw that and you met people oh, I started as a warehouse associate 10 years ago. It is a long time. It's not going to happen overnight. They have to put the time in. But I thought that was really inspiring as someone that's how I built pretty much everything, is just start from ground zero and believe you can and figure it out and get there.
So powerful, you know, and I think that this is one of the biggest lessons I've learned in terms of one thing that the restaurant industry could do better too, is is there room for growth in your organization? Mm-hmm. If it's not clear, literally map it out. And so when you have new employees, you say what's your goal? Do you want to own your own restaurant someday?
Yeah.
Well, hey, we're looking to the scale, and we have a partnership program.
Yeah.
And you could be a partner in this restaurant group, and here's exactly how you do it.
Yeah.
You climb this ladder, and you spend at least 5 years with us, and you can buy equity into a new location, and you could be the manager of that location.
For sure.
So building those tangible physical, you can literally see the path of growth.
Yeah.
To your point, is super inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is one thing versus Amazon in the tech world is different than like you need a degree. You got to have X, Y, or Z to get in a lot of the times. But like in this position, the warehouse position, like you can come in, they accept like all walks of life, which I thought was really cool. And then you can build it into a career where people have started as a warehouse associate in 20 years, they're at headquarters and like working the corporate job. But painting that same picture, I think in the hospitality industry too, where you can start as an hourly employee, back of house, doing your thing, and then expressing that, I think, is the biggest thing. Is like if they express interest and know what they want to do, because I've had several employees that want to open their own coffee shop eventually, and so I think that's really cool. I'm like, yes, please let me show you what not to do or what to do.
And I can't wait to get into those subjects too and what you've learned. Any other lessons in terms of how to appeal to employees or like ways to communicate to attract onto yourself people?
Yeah, I think just getting my biggest thing is like expressing the mission of the company. Mission, vision, and values is really big. And one of my mentors showed me like you have to be on the same page with the employees and the people you're bringing in, that they need to be able to see what your mission is. And to your point of like seeing that growth path. And like I'm at 2 locations right now. I have bigger goals for the company. So it's harder to like paint that picture, but to show people like there is an end goal, like you can grow with the company. I think Amazon taught me a lot, like to try and paint that picture to people and show like what's possible.
So not just the vision of the organization, but like vision on an individual levels.
Yeah. And it's like, I love to know people, like what's your end goal? I'm like, I know like an hourly role maybe isn't like forever for a lot of people, but like, what lessons can we teach you here that can help you? That's like Amazon did a lot of like trades. They'll pay for your trade school after like a couple years at Amazon. So like, oh, this isn't forever. You don't want this job. And maybe you don't want to work your way up into corporate. That's not it either. But like, hey, we'll pay for your cosmetology school or going to auto mechanic school or what that is. Like, what's your vision? Does it align with our vision? Because they can be different, but kind of aligned at the same time, if that makes sense.
So do you actually block time, or did you block time with new hires to say, what's your vision for yourself within this organization?
I don't. That was such high volume. It was impossible to, with like our biggest thing was automating, like getting hands off, which was tough, but like there was an online assessment that like you did or you didn't make it through. So at a certain point that became impossible to do, but through the assessment, it was kind of clear of like, okay, you got to figure out, are you aligned with the company vision? And then it takes our marketing to like market what's possible with the company for people like, oh, they pay for trade school. Like, even though it's not a one-on-one conversation, they saw our marketing stuff. So they're going to realize, okay, I'm in it for that college reimbursement or whatever it is. They know going into it.
It's weird sometimes. So like recently, trying to we're scaling Restaurant Unstoppable, where we're trying to create community. And I was being encouraged to do some coaching in like live, like mentoring. And I don't feel like like a coach. I've learned so much from this podcast, but going through the curriculum of what I wanted to teach, like obviously the things like mission, vision, and values was on that list, but I'm like, I feel like this isn't new information. Like if you're opening a restaurant today, I hope that you have to do this, but it's amazing how many people don't actually go through that process of really like distilling what change they want to see in the world, what role they're playing, and like literally spelling those things out. And like, what are your values? Are they values you pull out of thin air, or did you reverse engineer them from like what truly you value? You know, what's going through your mind as I'm saying this? Yeah,
I think it is a given. Like in my mind when I created it, I was like, oh yeah, it's evident, and like, but never documented. For me, that was my biggest thing. It was like, I know why I started this, and I'm going to remind myself every day, but a mentor came to me, he's like, well, write it out, and in your interview before you even hire a person, show them that and know, so they know what they're getting into. Like, are they aligned with like this mission? Do they match up with that before you go? Because that was a whole mentorship of hiring people and going through that process. Like, make sure from day one, from interview one, that they know what you are going after, and make sure they're along for the ride, and at least they're like, their goals and their values of here it's positivity and a good attitude and all of that stuff are aligned before they even go to the second interview.
And I think where a lot of people stop is they'll write it down because they think like, oh, I gotta write it down, but then they just write it down and it gets put in a folder somewhere, and like people don't live it every day. And living it every day looks like pulling it out for every new hire and saying, this is who we are, these are our values. It's baking it into your language, where like, and it's resurfacing them during meetings. Like today I saw Sally like live out this core value. You know, like do you do that stuff too?
Not as often. I think like that's the goal as I continue to scale. I'm still at where, I'm hopping between the 2 locations. We don't have regular meetings. That's like a goal of mine to do. Like I'm still kind of in the like early stages. I feel like that's a goal. And like even to have it like printed on the wall so customers can see it and they can get on board with it too, I think is important.
Any other lessons that you want to bring to the conversation before we take a break and thank our sponsors and come back to talk about when you started taking action to launch Chin Up Donuts?
Yeah, I think it was really just inspired for my time at Amazon of just like, hey, if you think Amazon is the biggest company, well, it is the biggest company or one of the biggest in the world, and they're still figuring it out with these teams like I was on. So I think that was really inspiring to me. Like, if a company like this, billions of dollars, and they're still like paying people like me to just trial and error and figure it out, then like there's a space for me to trial and error and figure my own thing out as I was like getting the inkling for starting.
Yeah, you're allowed to figure it out. Yeah. You don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we internalize, like, oh, like I don't have my shit together. Like I don't have it dialed in. Like nobody does.
Yeah.
But like do something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. We're going to take one quick break to thank our sponsors and we'll be right back.
We have to interrupt today's episode to let you know that every second and fourth Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, Restaurant Systems Pro CEO Fred Langley is going live to teach you everything you need to know to run a profitable restaurant from soup to nuts. All you got to do is click the link below.
We are back, and I want to start talking about like when this idea for donuts started to kind of like grow inside of you. So take us to like when you like why when and why donuts?
Yeah. I was obviously from Arizona, moved to Seattle for Amazon to work there. And with the change in climate and I needed a new hobby because I'm like, here I'm used to like playing sports outdoors or like hike and all that. I'm like, it's raining all the time. I got to do something indoors. So I was like,
not as cold though.
Yeah. No, I mean, not East Coast snow cold, but still for this like desert rat, it was like, this is cold and rainy. What do I do? It's cloudy out. I don't want to leave the house. So yeah, just started like making all kinds of food. I mean, I was really into pasta making, got a pasta maker, and I was like making my own handmade pasta for a while, and then got into baking, and then I got a donut cookbook and was just working my way through all the recipes, which is like one of the harder things to do. Like I literally just had a big pot of oil when I first started and was like frying donuts in there, which is a lot harder than like cupcakes or cookies you can throw in the oven anyone has.
And then what do you do with all that oil?
Yeah, exactly. But just fell in love with donuts and like the brioche style that we do here is what I came to like love. And
what was your inspiration for that?
There's a place in Portland called Blue Star Donuts. And I went and I visited, I go down to Portland pretty regularly. So, went to Blue, I'm like, this is the best donut. And for being the owner of a donut shop, I'm not a huge donut person, but I had theirs. I'm like, this is like a pastry. It's like elevated and like a little rich and buttery and not like Krispy Kreme that's going to hurt your teeth when you bite into it. Right. So when I was working my way through all these recipes and I found one for brioche style and I just kept tweaking that and then playing around with the flavors, and that's when I was like, oh, this is cool. Like you can have a lot of fun. It's fried dough. Like it's everything from like cheese sticks or like fried garlic knots. Like that's what it is, just like fried dough. Right. And like everyone's just doing pink with sprinkles, but like let's have some fun with it and like get creative. And so it was just playing around with flavors and like having fun and doing a lot of weird funky stuff. I did like a Doritos donut that didn't turn out well, but like let's just try it. And bringing them into coworkers at Amazon and like,
it's that Amazon approach of just try anything and see what works, right?
Throw it at the wall and see what sticks kind of thing. So that was like, I started bringing them to work and people were like, oh, this is really good. And so like that positive reinforcement, I'm like, okay, this is
feels good to be seen.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So
and I mean, it's a great way to spread positivity too.
Yeah. You know? That's like, no one's mad when you're walking into a room with the box of donuts. That's like,
exactly.
Everyone's like, oh yeah, donut lady.
So this was like 2017 when you're just starting to play with donuts.
Yep.
Right.
If not before, I think like probably 2015, 2016 was like in my apartment, just like.
At what point do you say to yourself, I might be able to start a business with this?
I think the first step wasn't even like, I want to start a business. It was, my background's in branding and marketing. So I'm like, I want a logo and a fun like brand name and like an Instagram, not even necessarily to like make money off of, just because I think like designing logos is fun. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I want a brand name and like design a logo and like build a website. That was all just fun and kind of a hobby for me. It wasn't necessarily the end goal to start a donut shop or donut business. So I think it started with that. I'm like, okay. And I'd like had like 5 names that I was deciding between. I'd bring them to people.
Do you remember the finalists?
I know Howdy Donuts was one.
Howdy Donuts?
Yeah. Howdy Donuts. There was like a bunch of like kind of Western-y theme, just being from Arizona. There's like a lot of Western ones, and then some Joyful Donuts or something. There was some, but obviously I was like always checking like the Instagram handle. It's like, okay, what's taken? What can I do? But yeah, so just playing around with
So how'd you
names.
settle on Chin Up Donuts? Not that you settled, I mean, it's a great name for
It goes back to like spreading joy with donuts. And there's a place, I'm like name dropping all these places. I have inspiration in so many different ways, but I think it's called Take It Easy Tiger.
Oh yeah. Out
in
of Austin,
LA,
Texas,
or
I think it's in Austin.
There's a couple maybe.
There's an Easy Tiger in Austin that does like hot dogs and sausages, I think.
Yeah, there's one. And because they go by an acronym, but it's like Take It Easy Tiger. I should really look this up, but knowing it's the inspiration of, but I was like, that's such a fun like affirmation in a brand name, which is like kind of long, kind of obnoxious, but then like you've just become known for it.
Right.
And so I like that like kind of positive affirmation in a brand name.
Don't let me get out of here without getting a photo of the tiger and Take It Easy.
Wow. Also, have never connected those dots. So that's great.
Interesting.
That was like subliminal thinking when I was decorating the shop, I guess.
That's crazy.
But yeah, and I was like, that is so funny. That's a long name, but it's a positive affirmation, but it's like kind of memorable because they're like, you think of like, oh, Analog Coffee, or like these short coffee shop names, but that was just like a long kind of positive affirmation in a brand name. So I like that. And so Chin Up Donuts was born. I was like, keep your chin up. Like, it's such a fun.
Yeah, it's a tagline.
Yeah.
It's in one word. It's not just, it says what you are.
Yeah.
It's about staying positive. It's about using your product to lift people up.
Yeah. Kind of back to that mission. Like, it says almost the mission in the brand name. It's like, chin up, like spread positivity, be joyful. It's a donut. Like, yeah.
So you start, so this is just for fun. Like, you're just like, I want to be able to call my baby something, right? Yeah. And then you have Chin Up Donuts. When did you actually have that name? When did that come along?
That was probably, a couple years into Amazon. So probably 2015, 2016. Okay. And it was like probably like, 2016-ish that I like made a bank account. And I was like, okay, I'm going to separate this and maybe do something where if I'm making money, I want it to be like legal and
right. So you were selling donuts to coworkers? Is that basically what was
coworkers going on? And then that's what was like the next step was getting into like a commissary kitchen. And I was like, okay, I want to do some bigger stuff, not necessarily out of my apartment.
Like how far could you go out of your apartment before like it became an issue?
I mean, I was doing maybe like a couple orders a month. And so it was like just waking up early. The thing is you just wake up at 2 a.m. and you can get 6 hours in before the rest of your day job. So that's like how I was running for a little bit until I was like, okay, I think I can do. I was like, it's the like overachiever in me that I'm like, okay, well, this was fun, but now I want to like make it into something more.
Right.
So that's when I was like, okay, if I want to scale this and like make it, not even thinking that I was going to quit Amazon at this point, but just like, oh, if I want to do bigger markets on the weekends or wake up earlier before the day job.
Well, that's what I saw is that a lot of people, like, it's not like you just quit your full-time Amazon corporate job and said, I'm going to do donuts today. Yeah. Like you swung into it, which I think is really smart. So there was like a 2-year overlap. Yeah. Well, I saw it's sounding more like 4 years according to you.
Yeah, because it was like for 2.5 years, it's very small scale. Like I said, like just playing around for 6 months to a year, another year or so, just making them out of my apartment, and then like got it, like investing in my own little deep fryer for my countertop in my apartment. So doing a year of that, and then just doing like little markets and stuff. And then it was after like 2 years of very small scale, very like touch and go.
And you're doing the brioche donut the entire time. Yep. What about the flavors? Were you like tweaking the flavors as you were going?
Yeah, just like always like trying different flavors. And like I would go to a restaurant or another bakery. I'm like, ooh, I like that combo. Like, oh, guava cream cheese this. Like, let's try that on a donut, or like have something savory. And like, so I did the sriracha cinnamon sugar was one of my like early day ones, and the everything bagel was the same thing, was like one of my day one flavors.
Really?
I'm like, this is so cool.
My next question was gonna be, what is like one of your staples?
Yeah,
that's been around since a long time.
The everything bagel one is still to this day. It's still my favorite one.
I love how many are there?
Left of those?
Can you put one aside?
Hannah, can we grab an everything bagel donut and set it to the side so we don't sell out of that one?
Yeah, she's selling it right now.
Sure.
Please, thank you. Sorry.
Just to reserve it.
So I'm starting to get like anxiety over here. I'm like, what happens if it's gone in like 30 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So constant evolution, starting where you can, starting small, letting what determined your growth? Thank you so much. Oh man, maybe we should just do a quick little Donut break. Look at that guy. Everything bagel.
All the good. People are like, wait, but there's like onion and garlic. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And sometimes they're like, ooh, and some people are like,
would you have onion and garlic on any other type of bread?
yeah, that's a good way of putting it. But yeah, people are
like, it's just a vehicle to
yeah.
get goodness to your face.
Exactly.
Anyway, so yeah, take us through, like, what were your early struggles, or were there struggles? Or well, this might be a personal question. Were you making good money with Amazon to the point where you had extra cash flow where you can just kind of do this as a hobby?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And that's like having that like financial security. And I was like, I've never been a spender. I've just been a frugal person my whole life. So I'm like, I've got some money to spend. Like,
right.
I don't want to, like, I'm not like a designer handbag person, and I love like thrift stores.
Right.
So I'm like, I didn't have any big expenses. I'm like, what do I do with this like extra?
Donuts.
I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna invest in my little deep fryer and like all of that stuff. So yeah, it was just like, this is for fun. I've got enough money through Amazon. I've got a like great job, and it's like there were some like later nights during like our peak season at Amazon, but the rest of the time it's like a 9 to 5, 8 to 5 job. You're like, okay, I've got plenty of time after. Whereas like where I was used to college, where I was like, I worked pretty much 7 days a week along with going to class and everything. So I was like, what do I do with this free time? Oh, start a business. And it's not about making money. It was just about like, at that point I was spending more money than I was
you were
making.
enjoying it too. Like,
yeah.
you like the process of baking. You like
Yeah.
the process of designing and building a brand.
Yeah.
And you started small. This is what I tell everybody to do. Like, you don't become a restaurant owner the day you get a brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Like, you take that mentality of I'm an owner today.
Yeah.
And what can I do today with
For
my
sure.
resources today?
That's
and just start showing up.
Yeah, I'm always like, do pop-ups and do like just bringing them into coworkers. Like, you get so much feedback because I'm like, guys, what do you think? Like, tell me what's been your favorite the last month that I've tried, and like that you get so much more value of just. I would have had no idea. I mean, if I was just like, I'm quitting Amazon, I'm starting this donut
Right.
concept. I don't like think the iterations that you do while you're doing that small scale when there's very minimal risk is just very insight. Like, you can learn so much from
So
that.
yeah, go deeper into the detail of the scale and like before 2019. So you start with just like, doing it for yourself, learning different recipes, bringing it into coworkers, pop-ups. What the brand came before or after the pop-ups?
The brand came before. So that was like day one. That was like, I'm going to do this because this is fun. I probably made like 6 donuts at that point. I was like maybe a dozen or 2 donuts. But then I was like, oh, this is fun and this is different. And like, I don't really see there, like ice cream was a thing and cupcakes were like the big thing. That's what people were getting really creative and innovative with. Like donuts, that's where I'm like, oh, this can be, because I like to be different. I'm like, this can be my little thing that's different. And no one's really doing it. No offense to like cupcakes or cookie places, but like that's an easier lift to start in your like home kitchen than donuts. I think it like the deep fryer scares a lot of people away. So I'm like, okay, this is like different. So I had made a few things, but I knew like, okay, this is going to be my thing because it's different and I can do some really different stuff with it. So then that's when I'm like, okay, I'm going to have the brand name, get that all going, claim the Instagram handle. Because I'd taken some business classes in college, so I knew like get the URL and get the Instagram handle. And if it doesn't turn out, at least you have those secured.
Exactly. You can sell them later.
Yeah. So started with that and then started doing the pop-ups and markets. And like Seattle is such a cool, like it has such a good culture for like startups. I mean, tech startups is one thing, but like even in the food scene there is just really cool. And all the breweries do pop-ups of local makers and stuff. So I think like doing pop-ups with the breweries and things like that. And then I got into the commercial kitchen. So I would like took
How would you approach these breweries? Is there a way to do it right where like is like
go
respectful?
Drink some beer and hang out with the brewer. That was my route. Yeah, exactly. Just like chatting with them, like, hey, do you ever do that? Or like they'll have a poster, like they did it, especially in the summer. They start in like May and go through like August or September. So you're like, oh, I saw last month you did like this Maker's Mark, or like you had a pop up with them. Like, could I do that? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, most of them were really, because most of the breweries there just had like they had food trucks, but they didn't have their own food.
Yeah.
So they're like, yeah, sure. You want to bring food? Like that's better for our customers. So they were pretty open to it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think just again, starting where you are, just develop relationships and just start getting it out there. And like the overhead to do what you're doing, like how much money were you spending? Like, were you like get into like were you making money?
No, it took a while to do that. I think like in the apartment, I think like I had very little overhead, but then at the point I got into the commissary, like the commercial kitchen, they were pretty expensive just because the food scene, like everyone's kind of starting a thing in Seattle. So
how much did it cost?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was like 1,000 or something.
A month or a week?
Yeah, a month.
Okay.
1,200, which was like, oh my God. When you're selling at that point, they were like $250. I think I was charging for my donuts. that's going to be a lot of donuts.
How did you come up with 250 at this point? Was it just kind of like, that's what I'll charge, or were you doing like menu engineering? Like,
yeah, I was just seeing what are the other shops.
Okay.
There was no real like I didn't do a cost of goods. It was like, what are the other shops charging, and I'll charge similar.
I think that's what the restaurant industry did for like 70 years.
Yeah,
until we started
it's
figuring
probably
it out.
costing me $350 to make this, but I'm going
Right.
to charge $250 because that's what the other shops are
Right.
charging. And then through some good mentorship have done the research to that point. But yeah, so doing that commercial kitchen, that was a big step, and I was like, okay, I'm probably going to have to eat.
When did the
lose
commercial
some
kitchen come?
That was, goodness, probably, I was in there maybe a year, I think, before I moved to Arizona, December of 2019, back to Arizona.
December 2019.
So it was probably like a year, so maybe 2018, like the end of 2018.
Okay.
That I did that.
So a year. So 27. What happened in 2017? Because there's you put on your LinkedIn account that's when Chin Up Donuts started.
Yeah.
So what was significant that you said, like, I'm gonna cement this on my LinkedIn account that this is a real thing?
Yeah. I think that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to start the bank account. I'm going to start like going after, like actively like go after orders. So it was like posting on Instagram and like messaging people like, hey, if you ever need donuts for like, at that point it was like, we did some events at wineries for some smaller events, not necessarily like weddings, but like they'll do like smaller stuff where it's a couple dozen. Cause I could fit like 4 donuts in the deep fryer at a time. So the max I could do was like a few dozen at a time. So that was like, I got the bank account. I started like actively selling them to other people other than like my friends and coworkers.
Right.
And that's was like, okay, more people are going to know about this.
Right. At this point, you're saying like, I want to get out of Amazon. Like, did you have a goal to be like a business owner and like have this be your 100% full-time job?
I don't even think at that point. I think it was like, it wasn't until like maybe 6 months before I quit Amazon before I was like, okay, I might quit Amazon. A lot of conversations with friends. I think a lot of it was internal with my job of stuff that was going on at my job. I was losing a lot of my like creative freedom. They wanted to hire an agency and outsource all that and then just bring us some as more like program managers. I'm like, that's like why I'm here. It's like the copywriting, the design, and doing voiceover and doing like all this fun creative work that like fulfilled me. And I loved doing it with the team that I was on. But then, yeah, we got new leadership and there were some changes. I'm like, I don't really like this anymore. And like a lot of Amazon outsources their creative because they hire these really amazing creative agencies, but the agencies are separate. So when I thought about my growth path with Amazon, I didn't see it going as far at that point because so much of what I liked was creative. And I'm like, well, if I can create my own thing with Chin Up, like there's unlimited potential of the creative stuff I can do with that. Right. So that's when my wheels were like, okay, maybe that is the next step for me.
And when was this? With like 2000, like late 2017 going into 2018?
Yeah.
Because you moved back in 2018.
2019. Yeah, end of 2019.
December 2019.
Yeah. And I quit my job July of 2019 at Amazon.
But you're working remote. Well, no, that was 6 months before.
Yeah. So I was like doing a year in the commissary, like 2018 through 2019. So like a year.
Now, did you have money aside, like a runway? Were you saving?
Yeah. I was like, to my like earlier point, I was like, I wasn't really ever spending. Like my big purchase was a Yeti, which I have the Yeti ice chest still, but it was like a $300 ice chest, which is like all the things to spend money on was my $300 ice chest. Now my sister uses it more than I do, but I still have it. I got like one nice purse and the Yeti handbag. So I was like, that were my big things. And it was like $600 total. In Amazon is just like, they pay you a good amount. They give you a signing bonus, all those perks of the corporate world that I got. And I was just not like, I now wish I put a down payment on a house or something, but like I was just like having it in savings and knowing that I had that kind of.
So July 2019, you're like, I'm done with this. My job is essentially going away. I'm not fulfilled anymore. Mm-hmm. I want to have a creative outlet. I'm going all in on Chin Up Donuts. Mm-hmm. I think now is a good time to take our second break to thank our sponsors. And when we come back, we'll talk about the challenges of going full in on Chin Up.
Cool.
We have to interrupt today's episode to let you know that every second and fourth Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, Restaurant Systems Pro CEO Fred Langley is going live to teach you everything you need to know to run a profitable restaurant from soup to nuts. All you gotta do is click the link below.
We're back, and I took a bite out of a donut, and it's delicious. Perfect break opportunity. So, 2019, July, you're going all in. What were you feeling?
Yeah, I think a lot of excitement. In my mind, Amazon's always going to be there. So shit hits the fan. like I can always go. And I still had like all my coworkers were my best friend. Like I had a network there at that point. So I'm like, I can always go back to Amazon and like Jeff Bezos and a secure paycheck. This is just like, that was at the timing where I felt like the universe was just like colliding to be like, oh, just go out on your own.
How old were you going out on your own doing this?
Oh gosh, 27, 28 maybe. So yeah, and the
still
goal,
relatively young to be starting your own business.
Yeah. And the goal at that point was to open in Seattle. And I was going to open a shop in Seattle, like quit Amazon, and a very life-altering 2 months happened. I was in a relationship for about 4 years. We broke up, so that relationship ended. My dog that was like my child, my like everything, passed away like 2 weeks after that. Ugh. And then I was like, everything happened, like, and I had just quit my job at Amazon. I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. Yeah, really. So I was like I quit my job to open this donut shop, and I was like, still had the commissary, and I was like starting things in Seattle, and like getting some traction there. And I'm like, my partner wanted to stay in Seattle. And I was like, at that point I was realizing, like, I don't want to live here. I am such like I love the sunshine. My whole family, I'm a big family person. It's all in Arizona. So I'm like, this is the universe telling me like, hey, get back to Arizona and start it there. And that's where I'm like, oh, I love Arizona. And to my earlier point of like talking about the food scene, I was like, there's just so much potential here with being like the 4th or 5th largest city. And at that point, that was 2018. We were like on the inkling of starting some cool stuff, and having seen the potential with a city like Seattle of like, God, everything's local. There's like no chain restaurants when you get like in the heart of Seattle, was so inspiring. Like Phoenix has like so much, for being so big, I want to be like on the ground floor of like cool local scratch made artisanal, to use the buzzword, like really cool stuff. So that was just the inspiration. It was like the universe was just like, here, I'm gonna kick your butt and then tell you what you really want to be doing.
So your first brick and mortar was 2020, right?
Yeah.
November 2020. Mm-hmm. So almost a year after you moved back, right?
Yeah.
You get into your first brick and mortar. What were the biggest challenges in that first year?
Yeah. Well, it's a crazy time, December of 2019. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to hit the ground running, kind of build it up like I was doing in Seattle. So I got a commercial kitchen here, and I was just doing events and pop-ups, and I was like trying to get some following.
Was Arizona as open to pop-ups and those types of events as Seattle was at the time?
Yeah, I think so. I think being such a big city, there's just like, even if I had to drive to Gilbert, like Gilbert was the one market I found, so it's a pretty decent drive for me, but like you can find things here. Right. And not necessarily food specific, but they were just like makers markets. It was like Mama's Maker's Market or something. It was like, so it wasn't just food, but it was like a pop-up event that I had.
You've got to eat more
eat some more donut. So yeah, I got a commercial kitchen doing pop-ups, and that was like, I just got the commercial kitchen like maybe February. And so I was like in it for a month of doing like pop-ups and everything. And then March 11th or something, whenever COVID hit. And they're like, well, for the next few weeks, pop-ups are going to be delayed. And then few weeks turned into several years.
Your timing was kind of perfect though, because like, I mean, when you think about it, like you weren't overly invested. You didn't have this huge payroll yet. You had started your brand. It's something that I think is kind of like during the pandemic. Like I don't like what, like were you still making donuts and selling donuts during the pandemic?
Yeah, and that was to your point. Like, thank goodness I didn't sign a lease. Like, I've met several business owners that literally signed a lease in like February, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so tough. So I was still kind of like getting the ball rolling, and then that gave me time to figure out what part of the valley I wanted to be in, and like what areas. So that gave me some time and bandwidth, and I was like living with my sister for free. Like there was some, like I had the support system here to do it, and then just a lot of trial and error. Again, like I still had that commercial kitchen that I was working out of for a lot cheaper than I was paying in Seattle. And at that point we just pivoted. I was like, okay, I'm just doing delivery. So I'm just doing like Instagram ads to do like keep your chin up, and I would like spell out chin up, and I would like work with another candle vendor, and there would be like care packages I would leave on people's doorsteps. So like, COVID, you can't go to like your local coffee shop or your bakery, but like let me deliver to you. And that was like what I pivoted to, and became I still have people that come in. I was like, I was there when you were like doing pickups from your Tempe kitchen and like doing doorstep deliveries. I'm like, that's so awesome. So like allowed me some time to figure out like what people
And what was your strategy for getting the word out using Instagram?
Yeah, it was just like
would it be the same strategy today, or has it changed?
Pretty similar. I mean, I didn't have as much like the user generated content, which I think is super helpful here. And like the shops are really cute to like take photos of. So it's like, how creative can I get with just the donuts and like dropping them off and stuff. So, and like not interacting with customers, I think is a big part of like strategy now. But so it's, just like, how do you make them look as cute as possible and make them look desirable for people to want to order, especially pre-ordering, because what I've like we do a good amount of pre-orders, but donuts are such an impulse purchase. You're like, oh, I'm craving a donut. I'm going to go to the donut and like get a cup of coffee and a donut. So it's harder when I needed like 48 hours notice so I could prep the dough and get into the kitchen and all that stuff. So it's a different.
But I think it's also a product that does really well online because it's just so like appealing to the eye.
Yeah.
Like you can sell it with just photos.
Yeah. That's what I've been fortunate with, like any kind of marketing. I'm like, I have a great, like I talk to friends that are like health coaches and I'm like, that's a harder thing to sell on Instagram versus like a donut when you're like, damn, that looks good on Instagram.
I want that now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just like learning how to do marketing all over again because that's my background, but in a very different space. And so like, how can I leverage that? And I was from here, but it felt like a new city at that point because I'd been gone for almost 7 years. So I'm like, okay, how do I tap back into this and use the networks that I know here.
What kind of business were you doing just before opening the brick and mortar? Were you getting to the point where like you had a minimum amount of cash flow that could support, like, do you have like a benchmark?
Yeah, I think that was tough because I'm like, even I started the farmer's market at the beginning of this year and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I had done that longer.
Wait, you started the farmer's market at the beginning of this year, 2024?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like redid that because I was doing like the makers market before, but then they got closed down for COVID. And I don't think the farmers markets opened up again in 2020. It wasn't until like 2021.
Okay.
So I'm like, man, I almost wish I had waited and got like the farmers markets. Like I know, like shout out Bagel Daddies, my friend Chris that owns that. Like they kill it at the farmers market. And they have like a line down the block, and like it's so crazy to see. Like once you get that following at the markets, then I think then to open a brick and mortar. But I had like, okay, I've quit my job. I've been unemployed for a year. I'm kind of doing pop-ups and stuff. At this point, it's like you need a brick and mortar shop, or like because these markets are just not happening to the point. So do I wait another year for them to happen and do more growth, or just get the brick and mortar? And it's a grab and go food item. It's not like a full service restaurant that were still closed down at that point. So in my mind, I knew I wanted a space. I didn't want to wait to get more of that following for better or worse, which was a bummer of like starting a community and getting that following in Seattle and then having to move to a new city. But.
Right. So I'm assuming that there was probably a lot of available spaces by November of 2020.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that was a nice thing of like, when trying to navigate the city and figure out where do I want to open a shop and stuff. But yeah, there was a benefit of like, no one's really looking for space right now. So what do I want to do?
A lot of places closing too.
Yeah. And so like restaurant equipment auctions, like most of my equipment for my first shop were like auctions and stuff that I got or off eBay and things like that, which is like sad, but like, hey, I'm going to like start something new and you put it to good use. Like,
is there a lot of overhead associated with donuts? Cause you need the fryers, you need a hood.
Yeah, the hood was the biggest expense.
Yeah.
The deep fryer and then the mixer, which I'm now upgrading my mixer because people are like, you still use a 20-quart mixer? Which if anyone bakes and knows and the volumes that we're putting out, my chefs are like, please, a bigger mixer because we're doing like 5 batches. Yeah.
Units of work, please.
So I'm hopefully going to pick one up like this weekend.
Nice. Going with Hobart?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't like a ton of equipment expenses. It's just like the build out and construction. There was like, it used to be a sushi or like a poke restaurant. And so like, it was already kind of a restaurant, but like the electrical wiring and things that you learn a lot about construction when you're opening one.
Well, I mean, reflecting back at that time of getting open, what were the things that you wish you knew that you learned the hard way?
Oh, so many things. I think just looking at the good. Can't stop. It's like potato chip. Can't have
unstoppable.
I think there's so much about real estate, lease negotiation, location, so much about location. And like North Scottsdale, I knew I liked that area just because it's a more affluent area and I was charging more than 89 cents a donut. So I'm like, okay, there is a demographic there that can afford to have some disposable or
it's kind of a luxury thing too.
Yeah. And at that point in COVID, when like people are just like, stuff's expensive and a lot of people laid off. So it wasn't like a lot of people had that, but I knew North Scottsdale was kind of a pocket of like, okay, there's people that are there and have some money to spend, even if it's $3 or $4 for a donut. So I wanted that area. And then like getting into the space, I think I learned a lot of lessons of like maybe where I don't want to be in the future. Like there's not any foot traffic there at all. So like, especially in a new business, that's like a new brand to the area. You're not getting people walking by like, oh, what's that? Let's go in. Where this Old Town shop, you get a ton of that. That North Scottsdale, it's like 0 foot traffic. So that was like a lesson that I learned in hindsight. I was like, okay, next one, you want to be next to like a grocery store.
So when did you open this location?
April of 2023. So just celebrated a year here.
Oh, congratulations. So again, like over the past, so from your first brick and mortar, November 2020 to you're almost at four years of brick and mortar business.
3.5 here, yeah.
3.5 years. along this point, like evolution, and like what were your biggest challenges over the past 3 years?
Yeah, I think not coming from the industry was super tough because like, I mean, everything from the build out and knowing what floor sinks are and like plumbing and hoods, and then teaching. I mean, I taught myself the recipe, and it was all through my apartment, to evolving the recipe to be able to be made in a 20-quart mixer versus my like 5-quart one on the counter, and like hiring chefs that know what they're doing but like aren't going to be too controlling of your concept, and then working so much in the business that you don't work on it to grow it. And then I got so used to that just grind of being in the business that I forgot there's so much on the back end that just like
the stuff that you love, the creative stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That like just gets pushed off because you're like, I got to make the coffees and I got to help with the donuts. And like,
you also roast your own coffee too, right?
We were for a long time. So that's when I first started. I had a Bellwether, and that was like, I got to roast my own coffee and do that whole thing, but I wasn't giving any attention to the coffee brand. And it was just a very expensive investment that didn't pan out. So we still have our coffee brand, but now we do a white label. So an awesome roaster in North Phoenix roasts it. It's all women produced coffee. So Pony Up Coffee is my coffee brand that I still have. So we do bagged coffee, and that's all we use in the shops and stuff too. So that's another child that I have, my second child, that's just a little bit neglected at this point. But that's how we started, because my sister was in the coffee industry, and she's like, you should do this. And it's like very cool, high-tech roaster. And it didn't end up panning out. Right? Yeah. And that's just like the other thing of communicating. Like, we have really awesome coffee, and I think it gets overlooked a lot, that I need to be better about like promoting and marketing that side of things, because people just like, oh, it's like donut shop coffee, which like is not known for being the best quality. So trying to make sure people are like, hey, we have specialty lattes, we make all of our sauces and syrups from scratch, like really great coffee to go along with really awesome donuts. So that was part of roasting our own, and then it evolved to not roasting our own, but still using all women produced, all locally roasted coffee.
Got it. So back to this like evolution, getting your first brick and mortar open, things like you pointed out, like just not knowing all that was involved, excuse me, with the build out construction. Like you start tearing up floors, and this pipe is not big enough, or this plumbing is old, or the electrician is old, or so I think you said something else that's really good too, is like you had no restaurant experience. So like it sounds like even though you were the creative and you developed the recipe and the flavors, you were willing to get out of the way a little bit and hire chefs.
Yeah.
So what was that transition of like handing that off to chefs like?
Yeah, I mean, that was and I was still the chef. I was working 2 days like as the chef, like super early mornings up until a year ago. So I was still like in the kitchen regularly for the first 2.5 years of the business, which was tough, like waking up at 1 or 2 a.m. and working the whole kitchen shift, and then you're done at 9 a.m., which is great, but then you got to work the full rest of the day in the shop or like on the business.
I think not getting home until like 4 or 5 o'clock.
Yeah, so it's just like a long day. So for me, that was really empowering to hire a chef. So like thank goodness that's not my life every day. Like I can have a chef, and he was like the hardest worker and showed up, and he was with me until about a few months ago. So the first 3 years of the business, and he was awesome in helping grow and all of that. So I was lucky to find him. So for me, I was like, I liked letting go of that part, though I love being in the kitchen. It's just exhausting with this type of business when you have to be up at midnight to do that. Like you're just so drained before you can even sit down to your computer to respond to emails. You're just like, I'm zonked. So I was like excited to let that go, but still be part of like the creative, like let's try new seasonal flavors. Like let's play around with that. So still being involved with that, but for me, it was nice to be able to let go of some of that.
So you've let go over the past year.
Yeah.
Was it hard to find a new chef after the last one left?
Yeah. So I hired a second chef when I opened the second location, just because I knew we were going to be doing double the production, and it wasn't feasible for me to be running 2 shops and in the kitchen. So I found another amazing chef, and then
with the 20-quart mixer.
Yeah, still with the 20-quart. So hired her, and so they were tag teaming it, which was great. And then lost my original chef, but hired someone else that's amazing, and she's been great. And so I think I've been really fortunate to find really talented people that are willing to work the hours that, I mean, on the other side, people are working like 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. in other like restaurants. Like this is just a different ball game as well, of like getting someone that can get used to that lifestyle of waking up at midnight till like, you're off by 8 a.m. to do the rest of your day. But I know how tiring it can be.
You're also going to be in bed at 4 p.m.
Yeah, exactly.
To get up and
so finding great people that are willing to work that kind of schedule and be as dedicated to the like craft of like making sure they're super consistent is my new thing. I was like, okay, they should look the same. The lavender glaze should look the same on Tuesday as it does on Saturday when people walk in, that kind of thing. With a small business, like you have to get on top of like the consistency thing.
So how did you get control of consistency? What were the things that you started doing differently?
I mean, I think I still struggle with it, but I I think it's just being on top of like calling it out when it's not consistent. I'm like, hey, what did we do different? Like, did we change? We just went through like changing suppliers. So I think like, was it a different yeast that we're using? And that's why they're not getting as big as we're used to, or what are we changing in the recipe? Or like it's getting warmer, the proof time has got to shorten. So there's like so many factors with.
The good thing about Arizona is not a lot of humidity that messes with your recipe.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing is it a natural, like, it's not like a sourdough donut?
No, but it's a 24-hour cold proof. So we make all the dough the day before, and then it goes in the fridge to like get really good and buttery. And so we make all the dough the day before, it does a cold proof, and then we take it out, roll it by hand, cut it by hand, goes in the proofer, and then deep fry, and then all glazed by hand too. So it's just a very time consuming process too, which I'm like, I need to talk about that more, because people are like, oh, why is he so expensive? Like, if you realize how much work went into that donut.
What's that little jingle? It cost this much because it took me fucking hours. You probably heard that one.
Yeah,
right?
on Instagram. It's like, it's so true. You're like, oh my God, if you only knew the hours. Or like, and when we sell out, sometimes we'll sell out like 9 or 10 a.m. People are like, just make more. And you're like, it's like a long process.
But I think you're smart to sell out. I think that's it. The goal should be to sell out and to make just as much to sell out, and to create a sense of scarcity, so that like people start coming in earlier and earlier and earlier to get their donuts. Because you know that if you're not there before noon or before 10 a.m., then all the best flavors are going to be done.
And that's definitely been a learning curve, because I feel like people are just so used to like Bosa or Krispy Kreme or Dunkin' that are just literally frozen, and they defrost. Like they can get them all day, pump them out all day long. It's just a different business model.
It's like the barbecue approach. Like you're not going to waste brisket. You're going to sell out.
Exactly. So teaching customers to get used to that even was like a learning curve of people. Like a lot of 1-star reviews of people walking in and we're sold out. And I was like,
and I think our industry is guilty of like, we conditioned the consumer over time to like just give value, overproduce, give value, sell it for cheaper. And like the consumer just like, value was in volume. I think the sense of value wasn't in the quality, but it was in how much am I getting for how little I spend. Right. So we did that. The restaurant industry did that. The food production industry did that. I think now it's our responsibility to almost educate the consumer of what real food costs. Because we got so far away from real food over the past like 70 years.
And that's like educating that piece too. Like everything is made from scratch. Like, and I think made from scratch is like kind of become bastardized at this point too, of like we have donut shops saying they're made from scratch, but that's like using a thing of Bisquick and adding some hot water and like putting in a mixer and like, oh, made from scratch. Like we make our own dough. I'm like, okay, just because you're not defrosting them, is that still made for, like, where do you draw the line of made from scratch? I'm like, we're actually cracking eggs, we're cubing butter, we're like, real food is going into your food, which to me like is so, because people are like, oh, are these healthy? And I'm like, I'm not going to claim that they're healthy donuts, but like we use real stuff. It's not like a bag with like 20 million ingredients of weird preservatives to make your donuts last for 4 days. Ours are going to be good today and maybe okay tomorrow, but they're made with real stuff. And I think educating people on that too, when so many donut shops are saying made from scratch, but doesn't necessarily mean they are. And that's why you're paying $4 a donut, is because of the like real stuff that's in them.
The time and energy that goes into it, and also recognizing that we need to provide security for the people who help us do this. In order to do that, the only way to do that is to charge what you need to charge to pay people to give them security. It takes the consumer knowing. So what's the past year been like for you? If you've really been better about removing yourself from being in the business to working on the business, which I think you have a talent. I mean, I can just tell, like, you definitely have a talent for working on business. That's what you were doing at Amazon. You were working on it. So how has your life changed over the past year?
And I would honestly say it's been the last couple months that I've really this shop really struggled when I first started it. It was just like I opened right at the tail end of busy season. Old Town had a like dead summer just because it was like record heat. It was like 120 for like 40 days in a row here, and like no one was out. It was like the opposite summer hibernation that we had here.
Even 100 degrees is rough in a camper. I can't even imagine what 120 was like.
So it was just a killer summer. So I'm like, I can't afford to pay people to be here. I'm still going to work at this shop open to close. So I was just like living at this shop. But now it's like we've had a great season. I'm very grateful. And I've got a really awesome team here that show up on time and are like joyful to all the customers. So I'm like, oh, now I feel like I'm empowered to now go work on the business. So it hasn't necessarily been a year, but it's been a couple months of being able to, which has been hard for me to accept like that. And I still have people like, I went to the shop, you weren't there. And I'm like, oh, it like is soul crushing, but I'm like, yeah, Alex, you got to get used to it. Like a year, I'm like, I call it my CEO era. Like, yeah, I'm going to become an owner and not just like a barista, which is still fun for me because I like to interact with customers and all that, but it's a hard transition transition for me to like get out of my head. One, the like financial security piece, because like, okay, if I'm working here, I'm not paying someone to, but like, no, if I'm out working on the business, I'm doing sales and I'm doing some marketing and I'm doing stuff that's building this, and it's going to build the donut empire. Is going to be so much more valuable than me being here and getting distracted by customers constantly and not really working. So it's been a really challenging transition. I think a lot of it is mental and financial, and like the financial piece, like, I don't know if we're going to talk about that, but like that's my biggest like lesson.
I would love to talk about it. Not everybody wants to talk about it.
Yeah, I am like, that's my one thing. If I could tell like people starting a business, I'm like, oh my gosh, there was and I was fortunate to like have savings from my time at Amazon and stuff. And I got the SBA loan when I started my first one. That was amazing and like helped a lot of that. And even with that loan, I learned a ton of like, I was like, oh, I'm going to have this. They're like, okay, we're going to bump it up by 10% just because construction costs are normally a little. I was like, okay, fine. You want to bump it up? And they're like, and we usually do a 40%. I don't even know what they call the fund, like working capital pretty much to be able to pay yourself. And and to do that, I'm like, no, I'm just like, so I don't want to take on a lot of debt.
Right.
I don't want to spend more money than I have to. And I'm kicking myself 4 years later for not doing that because I haven't been able to pay myself, like other than working here and like tips that I make. I'm like, oh, that's how people do this. They take a ton of money in a loan. That's what loans are there for, to help you and help pay employees. And you don't have to feel like every penny, I'm like, I can't pay something. Like that's what's led to me.
You prorate that out over a year, right? And
yeah.
This is your paycheck until you get traction.
Yeah, the runway and the marketing dollars has been like, I learned so much. I'm like, oh, I wish I would have taken that, because now I opened the second shop. And I'm like, I want to be in Old Town. I'm going to do this, and I'm just like, I'm sharing it. I'm being very transparent here when I got into this, because I knew I wanted to be in Old Town, and I knew I could scale easier with one kitchen and 2 locations. It's like almost the same. Yes, I had to hire a new chef, but like the economies of scale to have another place to sell the donuts. I knew I wanted a new shop. I knew I wanted to be in Old Town, because that's just, you go to Old Town when you're visiting Arizona. A lot of tourist traffic. To my earlier point about foot traffic, a ton of foot traffic here.
It's a really cute neighborhood here.
Yeah, it's just like a really, like, people love to come to Old Town. So like I knew I wanted to be here. I found this place before it was on the market or whatever. I'm like, okay, sign on the dotted line. And I'm like, oh, then I have to pay for this. And there's still like a build out, even though there's not a kitchen, the construction costs were way more than I thought. And I'm like, okay, where am I going to get this $50,000 that my contractor is asking for next week? And I applied for loan after loan, went to every bank, 10 different banks, and hearing no over and over again. Cause like my cash flow was just not as high as it should be to open a second location. And I didn't know. I was like, so ignorant.
What did they tell you?
They're just like, you don't have enough cash flow to support a second shop at this. I spent like the build out costs that you need. Like, we just can't give you that. And I was like, oh, I got an SBA loan, but I didn't even have any proof of concept. I've got a fairly successful first location. I thought it was going to be so easy. I signed for the lease here, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just go to the bank. They gave me money last time, and they're like, no, you already have like all your assets are tied up in that first SBA loan. Like, we don't want to give you any more money. And it was so hard and like so disheartening. Using like leveraging I still have like personal savings, so just like leveraging that money pretty much.
You say leveraging, like putting it down, or
like a line of credit on my savings pretty much.
Got it.
So now it's like I have everything, and as you do when you start a business, which I get as part of the risk of opening this. So it's like everything is on the line, I guess, for this, like to help pay for this.
How does it make you feel?
I think it's just like, it's frustrating because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm like, God, is anyone going to tell me this?
Right.
And I was like, my sisters who were like, we told you maybe not to open a second location so soon. But I was so like overconfident, like, yeah, I'm going to do it. For better or worse. And like, even like the real estate, like, who was going to tell me this? Like, hey, maybe you should look at your get some money in order before you can do this. And then even like the SBA loan of like, I wish they would have told me like, hey, really I just was coming in so blind of not knowing anything, and like a fear of debt and all of this stuff. It's just like such a financial mindset issue that not everyone has, but like,
I think that's one of the benefits of starting small.
Yeah.
Is that your overhead, your liabilities aren't out of control, where you can let cash flow kind of, as cash flow increases, you know, if you keep a modest lifestyle and you don't take any more, you put it all into the business, and then over time, you know, it just keeps building. But to your point, like, I mean, I can relate with this because I just had to get $100,000 worth of loans to get my camper and my truck to live across the country. You know, and it's stressful. But eventually, a bank said yes because you got the money to do this, right? Or
well, they said yes to a line of credit, which is better than like me just having to pay for everything. Right. So I'm still like grateful for that, and that it actually ended up working pretty well because I could take only what I need. I didn't have to do that. But to my other point, I'm like, I'm not going to take more than I need, and like having to live. So
are you seeing growth?
Yeah, which is great. And that's like working with some mentors and like now setting goals of like, okay, I want to see 20% year over year growth, which I've seen at the North Shop. Like, how do I tap into the Old Town market and get that continual growth even over slower months like summer, because it's going to come and I've got to make it sustainable. So I just think there's so much to learn of like in the marketing space, and that's my background of like, okay, now how do I get out of working in here and like create a content strategy and make more TikToks and like do some SEO and Google AdWords and all of that like stuff.
Dude, I want to get into that. Before we get into that, can you just get a little bit more specific on like what you said? Like you said, why didn't anybody tell me this, right?
Yeah.
What specifically is this, and what are the granular details associated with this that you wish you knew?
Yeah, I think being very realistic about what it costs to open a business, pay yourself. You don't need to pay yourself a ton. Like pay yourself, I don't know, 20 grand a year is better than like zero, because you're going to get burnt out if you have no money to leave. Right. Like I'm living with my sisters, like barely paying like rent, which I'm very fortunate for, but like pay yourself something, because you're going to get burnt out. Yeah. And like take a line item for that. Like what is payroll going to cost you? Like be realistic with that, because I was just like such a cheapskate and I was like, well, we need the build out cost and I'll make do with the rest. So being realistic with that and like projections and having like A, B, C, like what's worst case scenario? I'm selling a dozen donuts a day. How am I going to make ends meet? Like what is that cushion that you're going to need to get you? Because my projections that I took from that, I had some really great conversations up in Seattle with some owners. Their projections are like 4 times of what I was making my first, like way. I was like, wow, that's awesome. Like I hope to get there at one point, but like when you're first starting, you're going to be like 1/3 of what the projections are. So make like A, B, and C, like worst case scenario of how many donuts you're selling and what money do you need to float the business for the first year or two until you can actually start making that. So I think just being, and everyone's like business plan is dead. I think the writing a business plan was like one of the most helpful things I did in starting this, to bring it to banks, one, but like being realistic with that financial picture, I think is the biggest thing I could teach anyone. Like write it out and put worst case scenario and give yourself enough runway. Think being stressed and burnt out and like so like afraid that I can't pay bills is like takes such a toll on you, and you can't get creative and you can't do the things that you want. And so I think that is like, if I could tell anyone, like paint that financial picture and make sure you can apply and get that money. Yeah.
So I've been told that whatever that pro forma is that you're building out this runway, this is what it's going to cost over 1 year, 2 years, whatever that length is, whatever your numbers say, add 50% to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Add, because there's always going to be something that you just like, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like you can't predict the crazy things. Like when you pull up the floors, like, oh, I didn't know that we're going to have to spend another $50,000 here or there. Or if you can, double it.
Yeah.
If you have that ability, double it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what, like the SBA is such a great resource, and was so like fortunate that I had several lenders that were willing to give me this money. That's what I just feel like, how are all these other shops doing so well and doing all this marketing and getting custom cups and like all this stuff? I'm like, yeah, well, if you make that into your budget, they'll give you, I mean, it's like have your business plan all well written and everything. They'll give you that money to start, but like going back on, I'm like, oh, I need more money. I realized that's a lot harder to do, saying you need more money than just getting that money up front. And I was just so debt averse. I didn't realize that's how I don't know the percentage, but a lot of businesses run off of debt. Like that's just how they operate. You get a loan and you pay the loan off like over time. You're not going to start with like, you got $1 million of your own money or your family's money or something and run off that. Like it's just loans, and you need to get comfortable with taking out loans and like putting some stuff up for like some of your personal assets up for grabs. But like, take so much stress off your back and really enable you the creativity and the investments in marketing. And I mean, I love packaging. Like I'm like, to be able to spend money on packaging and customizing that stuff it's huge.
It's great brand awareness too. And it makes you, it's a kind of legitimate, wow, I can't talk this morning, legitimizes your business a little bit too. So let's talk over the past. You said like the different approach to scale, to growth. You have been showing growth. So what are the things you started doing differently that has started increasing traffic?
Yeah, I mean, so much of it is just organic and like word of mouth, and that just takes time. So at a certain point, you're just like, why am I not getting a line out the door day one? Like part of it is like, hey, like a slow growth, like you just got to get the word out and slowly start doing stuff. But now I'm spending more time visiting hotels and saying, do you need more catering done? Or apartment complexes, like, hey, do you do resident breakfast? Here's more, like doing that, like almost door to door, like sales stuff, and getting myself and doing more events has been huge for me. Like I did it with the Phoenician. I got to do like an employee appreciation like event with them. I'm doing pop-ups at like, to my roots, pop-ups at breweries and stuff. And like Wren House, one of my favorite breweries, we did like a collab with them. And like just the more I forget what's like 7 times 7 ways of like how people need to see you. So I'm like, okay, I have like a great Instagram following and do really well on Instagram, but like not everyone is going to see my page there. So where else can I insert myself and their day to day, like doing yoga events and popping up at breweries, getting myself out of the shops and into these events where people are like, oh, Chad, that sounds familiar. I haven't been in. I'm like, oh, you need to be. And just showing face, having people try the donuts. I try and bring boxes of donuts everywhere I go and just like, hey, because once people try them, they love them. Like, where is this? I've never heard of it. So it's getting out there and getting myself out there and out of the shop to do more of that. Like, it's almost like door-to-door salesman stuff, but that's been super helpful and just that brand awareness. And get people in.
You're doing something I've never seen before, which I thought was really interesting, is letter donuts.
Oh yeah.
When did that come about?
I was doing those like like when I was doing it out of my kitchen, I started doing those. I forget what company across the country, and they were doing it when I was up in Seattle. I'm like, that's so fun. That's so cool. I wanted to spell stuff out. So I was doing those like early days. And that is just, especially like when then COVID hit and I was doing pop-ups or like delivery to the doorstep so I could spell people's names or do happy birthdays and make little kits. And those are super fun. And I just realized like, that's a great way of like a gift for me. I'm like, I'm not necessarily the biggest gift giver. I'm like, I don't need more junk, but I love to eat. So if it's like a gift and I can eat it, it's even better.
But I think it's a cool experience that you're able, and we're in the experience economy, they say, right?
Yeah.
So if you're able to use your product, like donuts in themselves, I feel like are an experience. They're a visual experience. They're delicious. It's fun going to the donut shop to see all the different types there. And you want every one of the donuts, but you can only choose 6 of the donuts. You know, so like that is an experience. But it's also this idea. I love that you're able to use the letters to personalize the experience.
Yeah.
So like to take the experience out of the shop and to like have it be, whether you're saying, hey, it's a boy, or like whatever that special event is, use like what better way to communicate something than with donuts?
Yeah. And then you have it, and then it's like having your name written out, like happy birthday, Alex, or whatever. Like it's so like personalized, but then it's also something you can share. It's not like a gift you're giving, like, okay, here's like a coffee mug or something, which we sell and are also great. But like to have donuts that you're like, oh, this is for me, this is great. But I can also share it with people because I'm like, realistically, you're probably not going to eat all 15 donuts that it took to spell out whatever it is. So you can share it. And I think that gift of you're receiving a gift, but also can share the gift is really cool and just creates that like just fun, like you said, experience for people.
Yeah. What advice do you have for taking how are you leveraging this to like grow the business?
Yeah, I think the fun thing with letter, you can spell out like so many different things. I've spelled out like
this donut is so good. I'm still eating the donut.
I spelled out brand names. I spelled out like for the Phoenix Suns, like we're in playoff season. So the last couple of years we've gotten to playoffs. So we'll do like Rally the Valley, or like when Suns and 4 was like Suns and 4. And so like we've got some traction from like press and stuff, from like great places you can get like Phoenix Suns themed stuff. And I've done it for like Pride and holidays and like spelling ho ho ho. And like I think there's just so much creativity on top of like the fun, unique flavors you can have. We can do them with donuts, and like Al McCoy was a commentary for the Phoenix Suns for a long time, and I'm like born and raised hardcore Suns fan, and so like spelling out Shazam and like giving Al McCoy our donuts, that's really cool. So like creating again that experience for really popular brands or really popular occasions.
Like how cool is that of a way to scale awareness of a brand, to send somebody, an influencer, donuts with a message?
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're telling me they're not going to take a photo of that?
Yeah. And that's the helpful thing is like everyone wants to take a photo of it, and they're like, oh, where'd you get those? Like, it's not as commonplace for like the Dunkins and the Bosa. Like they're not doing the custom because it is pretty time consuming and it takes a lot of work, but it is really something special that we offer and we're able to do. And
what's that glaze on the everything donut?
It's just a vanilla glaze. It's like our classic vanilla,
good.
Sweet and salty.
I'm so distracted by this donut. You have used influencers. You've done kind of like publicity stunts with influencers. Do you know the one I'm thinking of right now, specifically?
The most recent one, kind of? Yeah. That didn't pan out as much as I'd like to, but was still fun to do.
Which one am I thinking of?
Dave Portnoy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Barstool Sports?
Barstool Sports, pizza donut was super fun. And I think, it just got traction. I was at an event on Saturday and somebody worked up. Like, hey, did you hear from Dave? And I'm like, I don't know who you are, but that's so awesome that you saw that. And like got tagged in something that you saw that. So, and it was really fun for me. Like I got to meet him and give it, and he seemed really excited.
What was he like?
Very laid back. I mean, he's just like the broiest bro. So I didn't know what to expect, but like he was like genuinely, he's like, like, what? I've never had this. I was like, yeah, it's best heat up. He's like, is it warm? I was like, no. He's like, okay, well, I'll take it back to the hotel room and I'll get it warmed up and I'll have my camera guy film it. So I was like really hopeful he could do like a taste test video like he does. But he was very warm and welcoming. And I was like, can we get a photo with the box? And he's like, yeah, for sure. Like, this is awesome. How creative. Like,
I've seen him go off on people online. So I'm like wondering, is this guy an asshole? Like,
which I think he can definitely be when he wants to be. But he was genuinely nice to me and like welcoming. And so that was really cool for me to do because I'm like, what? That's like, I saw they were doing.
Are you going to be a jerk to somebody bringing you a pizza donut?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
So I'm like, I DM'd him, like, how many times should I DM him and say, hey, did you get a video of you eating the donuts? Like, just send it to me. I'll post it on my page if you don't share it to your 5 million followers. But even then, it was something fun to do. And like,
yeah, but I mean, I think it's fun just like thinking creatively and getting outside the box. Something I could be way better about. I'm probably the worst self-promoter. I like to think that if I just do hard work and I like outwork people, that should be enough. But there's a level of truth that you really need to promote yourself.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the benefit of I have a product that most people they're like, oh, who's your target market? And I'm like, yes, I've gotten like pretty refined with that, but like anyone can eat a donut and most people like donuts. I mean, people are like, I'm not a donut person. I say I make donuts for people that don't like donuts because they're not going to be your most people don't like it because they don't like sweets. But I'm like, well, try the everything bagel one because I'll probably I'll convert you to liking donuts. But it's nice to have a product that is easily like, unless they're like gluten-free or something, but for the most part, you can bring it to an influencer or a creator or another chef or something like, hey, here's something. They're like, oh, it's not like selling like a service or something where I have to like, hey, let me give you a massage or something that's harder to sell.
What haven't we discussed that you are just like uniquely positioned to discuss?
I think the power of social media and the power of like storytelling has been really huge for me, of just like being a women-owned business and starting this with like no experience, and just like I can really beat myself up about like not being good enough like 90% of the time. I was like, I am not where I want to be. I want more sales. I want to increase traffic. Like there should be a line out the door every morning. I compare myself to the other great donut shops and coffee shops, and I'm like, why am I not getting that? So I think it's hard to like step away from that and just be like, hey, look what I built. I just read 10x is easier than 2x.
Oh my God. Like I've been talking so much about this book. Yeah, it's huge.
It's been so great. And I had the audiobook and I only got 75% through, and then the library took my thing back. So I need to finish it. But like the first 75%, like honestly has like changed my perspective on so many things.
Did you get the version where there's like the interview with Dan Sullivan?
Yeah.
I almost stopped. I was thinking about stopping in Florida to get Dr. Hardy on the show to discuss the book.
Yeah.
I probably should have. I was in a rush to get out of here. But I would love to get him on the show.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But just like his like learnings and like the mindset shift and all of that has just been super powerful, and like the gap and the gain. So like that's a gap mindset. I was like, I'm not here. I'm not as good as X, Y, or Z shop. But like, hey, look at what I've done. And like even just like rehashing this of like where I came from is like really cool for me. And like, oh yeah, like I'm doing pretty well. And it is also hard. Instagram versus reality. Everyone's like, you're killing it. You're selling out every day and you're doing it. And I'm like, well, I could be selling double the amount of donuts, but I'm not. And I could sell out that. Like, so trying to look at the gain, but look at how far I've come. Like I've got 2 locations that are regularly like selling out and doing great. And like, though I want greater things, I think just like looking at the gain of how far you've come and like grown, and then just like, okay, and then I'm going to 10x this from where I'm at now.
I think it was in that book, Dan Sullivan was talking during like the interview process, or like so that book is written, there's like the actual book, which is narrated by, is it Hardy?
I think
Dr.
so.
James Hardy or something like that. He narrates the book, and then after every chapter, he does like an interview conversation with Dan Sullivan, reflecting on that chapter's purpose or whatever.
Yeah,
I think Dan in one of those interview portions of the book was talking about as entrepreneurs, we're constantly looking to the horizon.
Yeah,
and I think this is when he was talking about the gap in the game. Like no matter what, if you get to that point, say you see a mountain on the horizon, you want to get there.
Yeah.
You got to that mountain, and then you stand in the mountain and you look out, and there's a new horizon.
Yeah, there's constantly such a good.
Yeah, it's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Like we forget to stop and look at like what we have.
Yeah,
what we've
you're
got.
already on top of the mountain. Like
you just climb the freaking mountain, man. Like
yes,
chill out,
true.
enjoy the mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that can be very hard. And I was just talking to some girlfriends this morning that both run business about like complaining this. And I was like, yes, and I'm like, that book has helped, like, hey, where are you at? What are you excited? Like, express some gratitude for like doing this or getting this job, or like I just got a grant, and I was like, I just found out this morning I got a grant, and it's a micro, and it's $500, and I'm like, oh, I could have been 50 then. Like, I wish it was more. But like, no, that's so awesome. I got like out of all these applicants, I got the micro grant. Like, that's really cool. So celebrate that and don't think of like, it could have been X, Y, or Z. So I think that's been really, really good about realizing like, hey, be grateful for where you're at. And like, that's going to keep your mindset positive and then only instill more growth and
just
success.
Keep showing up.
Yeah.
So in terms of this, the power of a story, did you unpack that?
Yeah, no, sorry, I got on a tangent.
You're fine.
But yeah, I think just telling my story, I mean, that's what like having the magazine with my story on the wall and stuff, I was like embarrassed by, but like my mom.
Were you gonna have your Instagram or your the photos I take of us doing this interview?
Yeah, I'll frame that too. Now I'm gonna have a celebrity wall, whatever celebrities come by too, so we'll get a photo and put those up there. But cool. Yeah, my mom. She's like, we gotta frame them, put them up in your shop. People love. I'm like, I don't know. And as soon as I hung them, I have like copies at both locations. People love to stand and read that. I'm like, this is you? You started that? Oh, that's so cool. Where'd you work at Amazon? So I think just telling that story part, and because it is kind of a non-traditional, like I worked at the corporate desk job for 7 years and then like completely pivoted and got into donuts out of nowhere, is a cool story, and people love to hear that because I think it's weird to call yourself inspirational, but people like realize if they're unhappy with maybe at their job or their career, like, hey, like you've got the like there's stuff out there to like start. Even if it's just doing it on the side. Like I know a guy that's like working a job he's maybe not in love with, but he's like doing this coffee thing on the side and doing some pop up. I'm like, yeah, just start somewhere and like get your path to. That's why I don't have a lot of sympathy for people that complain about like their jobs. So, like, hey, like if you're like get by, I get everyone's got to make some money, but like get some. I was waking up at 2 a.m. before like my 8 a.m. job to like make donuts, and even though my end goal wasn't necessarily a donut shop at that point, like it became to be that. So it's like I think telling that story and being able to be like, hey, I wasn't like in love with my job at a certain point, and then I was just like, I was grateful I had a little bit of savings that I was like I saved up over time, but like even then save up from your like whatever hourly job you're at and like pocket that and like have the little nest egg or start selling whatever you want to do and at the farmer's market, like big proponent of markets and pop-ups and doing that kind of thing and save what you can do there. I think telling that story of like I literally have no experience, and a lot of times it's really hard of not having the hospitality experience and like operations especially. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's such a tricky thing. I don't think
it's as important as people make it out to be to have the experience.
And I think like my marketing experience has been even better. Like it's so nice to have that branding and marketing experience, but like still there's some challenges I face without having that experience of the operations side of things. But that's still no reason to not do something. So I think telling that story has been really exciting because people, I think it just resonates with a lot of people of not necessarily liking what they're doing and maybe having a passion for something else. I'm like, go after that. I'm like, and I wasn't even that passionate about donuts necessarily. I just love the creativity and the joy it brought to people. And that built a story and that built a brand on something that was so unexpected. I think that's a cool story that's been really powerful to tell, and has helped to build this brand. I think just like that resonates with people. Yeah,
for sure. And the only thing we haven't really discussed before we start wrapping things up, the one thing I'm curious about, where do you think, like, actually, I wanted to bring this up. I forgot. So you said the power of having a vision, having a mission, having core values. Mm-hmm. So what is your vision?
My vision is to be one of the premier donut shops in the U.S. I'd like to have like a reputation, and even if I don't have locations all over the country, just know like if you're in Arizona or in the Southwest, you've got to go to this donut shop. They do just donuts that no one else does. It's like my thing that my new like catchphrase is like challenging the donut status quo. It's like there you don't just have a donut with pink sprinkles. You can get so creative and innovative and cultural with flavors. So I think that's like I want to be known for that.
I love that. And what are your core values? Putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, really. I think it's bringing joy in everything we do, whether that's interacting with customers or posting online, interacting with people there. Between my team members, I want to make sure everyone's enjoying like coming to work and like enjoying the people that they work around. So I think like that joy and optimism piece is like number one. Being creative and pushing boundaries to my point I just made about like flavors and like unexpected stuff. Like I want people to walk in and try something they've never had before. Like getting creative and pushing the boundaries, and like we can't just do the same seasonal flavors we did last year. What new flavors can we try? And like what collab can we do? Like I was telling you about the barbecue collab. We did brown butter and brisket, and like I'm playing around with flavors for National Donut Day next month for other collabs, and like let's do some really cool stuff. So to continue to push boundaries and do unexpected stuff is another value. Oh gosh, I think there's like one more. That was my 3, but those are the main ones.
You did good. What is in the mission statement?
it's back to that joy and providing like stellar customer service and joy to everyone that walks through the door or receives our donuts, like from the packaging to the experience that you walk in, like to be greeted with a smile, be excited to talk about the donuts and tell them our fun flavors that we have. Our mission is really just to spread joy and positivity through coffee and donuts.
It sounds like your unique selling proposition is the uniqueness in the creativity in like, you know, from the unique batter, right, that you're using, the brioche. Is that a common like I don't even know what with the base.
Yeah, no, because everyone's like, is it raised or is it cake? I was like, well, it's not cake. It is a raised donut because it's a yeast raised donut. But brioche is going to be quite a bit different than your traditional, like everyone expecting like a Dunkin' or a Krispy Kreme style raised donut. And it's got a little bit more weight to it. Yeah. Like dense isn't quite the right word because like for me, like dense isn't necessarily like a good word, but it is denser than your traditional donut. So like trying to find the right adjectives to explain what brioche is has been a challenge too. I'm like coming up with some marketing materials of like even how to explain what does brioche mean to people, but starting with just the different base than people are used to, so educating them on that, and then educating, like my goal every day is to get the everything bagel donut to sell out, because like it's about 50-50 people are like, no, and I'm like, I'm at 90% success rate. If you try it, you like it. It's just a little. So like I love to try people, like test people's limits of what they want to try. Sure. Like the sriracha cinnamon sugar one we had for a while too. I love to like push that on.
I'm gonna have to try at least one more donut before I leave. Yes. I'm trying to hold my carb intake, but when in Rome, right?
Yes, yeah.
So like thinking about the future, like what opportunities do you think as the industry continues to evolve, what unique opportunities do you hope to leverage and diversify your business model with?
Yeah, I think really leaning more into, I mean, it's hard for me because I'm constantly like, people are like, don't you want to do more like catering and that? Is like, which is a big arm of the business. But like for me, creating spaces is such a really cool thing. Like having a space where the people like can come into and like sit on this like cool retro couch and like just a fun
cool couch. I noticed it
a fun space. So I'm like, I love creating spaces for the community to come, and like, especially when I opened my first shop, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but when I opened November 2020, like having a shop that like, there's just so much bad news out there, especially at that time. I mean, even now, like there's just a lot of bad news. So like having a space where you can come in and like, the world's shit, but like I'm eating a donut and having some coffee and just like in a nice space playing some like ABBA or Hall & Oates and like can just like chill. Like that's fun for like really inspiring for me to like be able to create a space like that for people. So I think growth wise and sales wise, it is doing more catering sales and doing more events and getting out to the community more and creating more of those like one of a kind experiences. I know like Cloth and Flame is a really cool catering company that does like really unique. So I think partnering with people like that, they're doing really creative, innovative events and making us. Have you heard of Bon Poof
No.
Puff? They do like really bougie cotton candy. So I'm like doing that, but like being the plate, like you want to have our donuts at your event and doing these like cool, bigger like installations and events. I think that's the right
approach. Is that mindset of abundance and just collaboration and going further together and not being afraid to approach companies and say like, hey, like how can I put your food on a donut? You know, and like and just like, you know, slingshotting your brand off of other brands is such a smart approach. I have some other ideas I could share with you after we finish the recording, but this has been a lot of fun. So before we wrap up, I have some standard questions I want to ask. The mission statement, actually no, I'm gonna edit that part out. What is one thing about your business, a value, a process, a system that is truly uncommon that makes you unstoppable?
Ooh, I think just not being afraid to try something different and it not be well received, if that makes sense. I think trying, like most like comes to mind, like flavors and stuff that we're doing. It's just like, okay, we've done like a nacho cheese jalapeno donut for like the Super Bowl. And I was like, that was really fun and like cool for us. And like it totally flopped and like nobody bought it, but it was still fun. It was like fun to market and do that. So it's like just trying stuff that like, I think it's good, but like not everyone's going to love it. And like, being okay with that, being okay with it. You're like, hey, that sucked and we probably won't do it again next year, but it was fun. And like, we tried something different. I think not being afraid to like push the boundaries of what people like are okay with. And like, maybe it's not going to sell at all, but we tried it and we did it. And I think that like not letting fear get in the way of trying new stuff.
I love that. So the mission statement is to change the world by inspiring, empowering, and transforming the industry. How have you personally transformed? Who are you today versus the woman you were when you got started?
Ooh, that's such a good one. I think just like my confidence as a business owner, and it's still something I'm working on every day, but like being able to lead a team of employees has been like becoming a better leader and a manager has been really inspiring and helpful. I think sharing my story with other like female business owners or people that want to start their own thing has been really empowering. So I think just like I've become so much more confident in what I'm doing. Honestly, even in the past few months of just like really getting in the feel of having 2 locations, like working more on the business and in the business, and like that confidence piece can go so far because I was having another conversation. They're like, get out of the business. Like you have so much value to give. And I feel like trying to internalize that and realize that, and then having confidence and like, okay, I can be a business leader, not necessarily just like an owner. So.
Actually, along that vein, in referencing 10x is easier than 2x, what is the 20% of work that only you should be doing and that you're uniquely qualified to do?
Yeah, I think it's that storytelling piece. And like, I love the brand, but like building a brand and like Chin Up is such a cool brand to me and has so much potential. I think telling that story and that living that brand of sharing joy and pushing the boundaries and all of that, like I think that's where I'm gifted at. And like I like even in my past life at Amazon with so much of that storytelling and that branding. So I think when it comes to this, like no one can talk about this brand or sell this brand better than I can. And that's where I need to get out. And that's where I'm like, that's where my 20% sweet spot is telling that story and getting out.
The culture carrier and sharing what you're doing. I love that. Well, I know 100% agree. So what about in terms of transforming the world, right? How do we intentionally go into the future to make a better industry?
Ooh, I think we were kind of chatting about it earlier, but like not being afraid to share knowledge. I think like a rising tide lifts all boats. Like I'm all for like, hey, there's another donut shop coming in. Like, great. Like, how can we collaborate or how can I share? I mean, like not asking everyone to share their secret sauce or whatever, but like, hey, like let's help each other out. Like even when it comes to like, if I could show you anything about getting a loan or like being able to share knowledge, I think across the industry. I don't have a ton of like restaurant owner friends or like connections. I think building that is a goal of mine because like it's a very specific industry of like the challenges that we face. So I think building that network, but like not being able to like vent and share knowledge and like share what's going wrong. I think sometimes we can get in our head like everything's great. It's great. I'm making lots of money and everyone loves us. But I think like being okay with like sharing the crappy stuff and like connecting with other people on that can be really helpful, not necessarily focusing on the negative, but being able to communicate that because that can kind of be a weight on a lot of people's shoulders of just like, oh, this really sucks, but I can't tell anyone. I have to put this face on.
If I interview anybody that you want an introduction to in
I
Arizona or anywhere, you let me know. I'll make that introduction.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you got the news, this is the last question, by the way. It's a doozy, so hang on to your seat. If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. Okay. All the memories of you, your work, and your donuts would be lost with your departure. What were the 3 pieces of wisdom that you could leave behind? If you could just leave behind 3 pieces of wisdom for your legacy and for your you know, to remember you by, what would those 3 pieces of wisdom be?
Ooh. Always spread joy. I think it's so much easier than spreading negativity, spreading joy. So that's my one big one. I think don't be afraid of being different. I think that can be such a strong thing, but so hard kind of today when you're just like, I want to fit in. I want everyone to like me. But like people will like you because why you're different is what I'm realizing. So I think that's a big one. The third one is take the leap. That's kind of a generic cheesy one, but like go after it. Like what's the worst that can happen? Money, probably. That's like bankruptcy. That's the worst thing, honestly. Like no one's likely going to die, knock on wood, but like if you're going to lose money, like
do it.
No one wants to be the richest bitch in the graveyard. Sorry for the profanity, but like that's a one thing. I was like, no, like what are you gonna do with all that money? Okay, give it to like your kids or something. But like spend the money on like following your passions and like doing something you love, because that you're so much better off to the world if you're doing something you're passionate about.
100%. Awesome stuff, Alex. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much. So this next question is the official last question, but like I'm really trying to. I don't want to be the one to decide who gets to be made an example of. 99% of all my interviews are referred to me by somebody in my network. That's how I found you. Rory called you out. So who do you respect and admire? Somebody in preferably Arizona, because I'm here now and I can take advantage of it. That you look up to. That if they were a guest on the show, you'd be like, ooh, I want to know what they had to say. Like, who is that for you?
In the industry, I think first that comes to mind is Megan Greenwood of Greenwood Brewing. It's a female-owned and operated brewery here in Phoenix, and she is super awesome and super sweet. Has a similar story of just like she was an engineer and she like went all in on brewing, and it's just, and specifically the brewing like beer industry of like just carving a niche and like doing some really awesome stuff.
And those making Greenwood.
At Greenwood Brewing. So.
Greenwood Brewing. Look out, Megan. I'm coming after you. Anybody else? You don't have to do another one. I just didn't want to cut you short.
Yeah, no, I think that's the main one. Like I said, I'm not super connected to the other like hospitality people, and it's.
Let's change that.
Yeah. Connect me with all the people.
Megan, look out, I'm coming after you. I'd love to get you on the show. And how can we connect with you if we really enjoyed today's episode and we want to just maybe we want to come work for you?
Yeah. Chin Up Donuts. I mean, I'm all over Instagram. I have to set a time limit on my Instagram because I'm always on it, but like responding to DMs and comments and stuff. So at Chin Up Donuts. My personal is at Alex McEntire. I'm tagged in the feed and stuff. So.
Just so you hit a time limit?
Yeah, because I have to like control my Instagram because it feels like work a lot of the time. And I'm like, okay, I'm like scrolling forever. I have to set a time limit on my Instagram. But I was just saying that because usually if you message Chin Up Donuts, it's me. I'm interacting with everyone.
Yeah.
I love responding to people's stories and like.
She was very
Stuff,
responsive.
so.
That's how I connected with you.
Yeah, and it was like within the hour or something. This is embarrassing, but I'm commenting on this. It's like I'm all over it. Like I'm get tagged in something, I want to look at it. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been a lot of fun, and this is where I say, Alex, there is no questioning. You are unstoppable.
Thank you. This
Thank
is awesome.
you. Cheers.